When Barron Trump became the target of a joke, Melania Trump's strong response sparked a major cultural discussion. It started like any other night in late-night television. The audience in Burbank, California laughed as the host, known for his sharp humor and political jokes, made fun of public figures. But then, unexpectedly, he turned his jokes toward Barron Trump, the youngest son of former President Donald Trump and former First Lady Melania Trump. The joke was quick and aimed directly at the teenager. The audience's reaction was mixed. Some laughed hesitantly, while others seemed uncomfortable. The comment wasn't just a harmless joke, it was a pointed remark at a child who had mostly stayed out of the public eye. Soon after, the clip went viral. Hashtags like #BarronTrump trended on Twitter, and memes flooded social media as both Trump supporters and critics of the host shared their opinions. Some called the joke disrespectful, while others defended it as just comedy. News outlets quickly covered the story, sparking debates about where to draw the line when it comes to humor. Melania Trump watched the clip in shock. Her son Barron had always been her main priority, and she had worked hard to protect him from the mess of public life. The insult wasn't just hurtful to Barron, it was a personal attack on her as a mother. She knew she couldn't just ignore it. Her protective instincts kicked in, and she began working on a statement to address the issue. But this time, words alone weren't enough. As the backlash grew, Melania decided to take a bold step that would send shockwaves through the media. She would file a lawsuit. What she didn't realize was that this decision would lead to a much bigger battle than she ever expected. The next morning, Melania's team released a statement that was both firm and measured, condemning the TV host's remarks as harmful and inappropriate. While her words resonated with her supporters, they weren't enough to calm the rising controversy. Melania wasn't just upset, she was ready to take action. Melania was determined. For years, she had faced criticism and mockery as a public figure, but this attack on her son was different. It was personal, and she was ready to fight back. She sought out one of the country's top defamation lawyers, a woman known for her tough, no-nonsense style and successful track record. Together, they filed a lawsuit against the TV host and the network, accusing them of defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The legal filing made it clear, though the comment had been framed as a joke, it crossed the line. This wasn't just about free speech, it was about protecting a child's right to privacy and dignity. The lawsuit itself became a major news story, with anchors debating whether Melania's case had real merit or if it was just a clever move to stay relevant. Supporters hailed her as a brave mother standing up for her son, while critics argued that the lawsuit was just a publicity stunt. Barron, in contrast, stayed out of the public eye, with close friends describing him as a quiet teenager who avoided the media frenzies surrounding his family. Melania's actions were a bold statement, but the public debate around them was far from over. Her actions spoke louder than words. Melania wasn't fighting to protect her own reputation, she was fighting to protect Barron's. The lawsuit had an immediate effect. Sponsors began pulling away from the late-night show, fearing bad publicity. The host, usually confident and outspoken, seemed more subdued in his following broadcasts. Still, he refused to apologize, defending his right to free speech and calling the lawsuit an attack on comedy itself. But as the story unfolded, it only grew bigger, drawing attention from all over the country. The battle was just beginning. The lawsuit sparked a firestorm across every media platform. Cable news stations aired hours of debate, online forums buzzed with discussions, and podcasts analyzed the issue from every angle. The nation seemed divided. On one side, many praised Melania for standing up against what they saw as bullying disguised as humor. Parents, especially, rallied behind her, flooding social media with messages of support. Protecting our kids should never be a question, one viral post read, sharing a photo of Barron during his father's time in office. On the other side, the backlash was intense. Comedians and talk show hosts quickly rallied behind their fellow entertainer, arguing that the lawsuit set a dangerous precedent for creative freedom. Many insisted that public figures, and their families, were fair game for satire, no matter their age. If you can't take a joke, you shouldn't be in the public eye, one prominent host declared during a heated debate. The discussion quickly spread beyond the media, spilling into coffee shops, workplaces, and dinner tables across the country. In Los Angeles, college students gathered for a rally to debate the ethics of free speech, while in a small diner in Topeka, Kansas, retirees discussed whether the host had crossed the line. What began as a dispute between Melania and Barron was now about much more: how far society was willing to go in the name of entertainment. Amid all this, the late-night host refused to back down. His monologues grew more defiant, casting himself as a victim of censorship. His supporters cheered, but his critics pointed out that his jokes had become sharper, almost bitter. The once charismatic host now seemed weighed down by the controversy surrounding him. The pressure on the networks was mounting too. Ratings for the host's show began to fall, and rumors spread that executives were reconsidering their backing. Meanwhile, Melania's legal team wasted no time, submitting more evidence and statements to strengthen their case. What started as a personal fight was quickly becoming a cultural showdown. But no one could have predicted the bombshell that would drop, threatening to shift the entire course of the lawsuit. When the trial began in Los Angeles Superior Court, it turned into a media spectacle. Paparazzi flooded the courthouse steps, capturing images of Melania Trump arriving in poised elegance, flanked by her legal team. On the other side, the late-night host entered with his attorneys, his face set in a determined expression. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. This wasn't just a trial, it was a test of modern entertainment. The prosecution opened with a powerful argument, stressing the difference between comedy and cruelty. They played the clip of the controversial joke, the audio reverberating through the silent room. Melania's lawyer painted a powerful picture of how the comment had deeply impacted Barron, portraying him as a teenager caught in the middle of media sensationalism. "This is not about free speech," the lawyer declared, her voice firm. "This is about a child's right to grow up without being mocked for entertainment." The defense, however, took a different approach. They focused on the First Amendment, arguing that comedy, no matter how offensive, deserved legal protection. The host's legal team presented decades of legal precedent, framing him as a misunderstood artist pushing creative boundaries. At one point, the host himself took the stand, passionately defending his career and claiming the lawsuit threatened to stifle artistic expression. The courtroom became a battleground of opposing ideologies, with each side bringing in witnesses to support their claims. Barron's former teachers testified, describing his quiet nature and how the constant media attention had impacted his school life. Meanwhile, the defense called in comedians who passionately argued that satire was an essential form of societal commentary. As the trial continued, public interest skyrocketed. Every moment, from Melania's calm reactions to the host's fiery remarks, was analyzed and discussed on major platforms. Late-night shows across the country avoided making jokes about the trial, fearing they might become the next target of public backlash. But just when the trial seemed to be settling into a predictable rhythm, a surprise witness was introduced, shaking the case and public opinion. On what appeared to be an ordinary day in court, the atmosphere shifted when the prosecution announced a bombshell. The defense team exchanged nervous looks as a former employee of the network that aired the late-night show walked into the courtroom. His name was William Carter, a former production assistant. William Carter, who had worked on the show for over 5 years before being dismissed under controversial circumstances, walked into the courtroom with a calm but determined demeanor. As he was sworn in, the tension in the room was palpable. He began speaking about the behind-the-scenes culture of the show, describing an environment where pushing boundaries was prioritized over ethical considerations. But it wasn't just his general observations that shocked the courtroom, it was the specific evidence he presented. From his briefcase, Carter produced emails, scripts, and internal communications that revealed something far more damaging than anyone had anticipated. According to Carter, the joke about Barron Trump wasn't an offhand remark. It had been planned, debated, and approved by higher-ups within the network. Even more troubling, some of the emails suggested the joke wasn't meant to be funny at all, but designed to stir up controversy and boost ratings. The courtroom gasped as the documents were displayed on the screen. In one particularly incriminating email, an executive wrote, "It'll get people talking, controversy sells." For the first time, the focus of the trial shifted away from the host and onto the corporate machinery that had supported the incident. The defense scrambled to recover, arguing that the host had acted independently and that the network's involvement was irrelevant to the case. But it was too late. Carter's testimony had planted a seed of doubt, not just about the joke itself, but about the motives behind it. Outside the courthouse, the revelation sent shockwaves through the media industry. Headlines blared about the toxic culture within the network, and several top executives were placed on administrative leave while an internal investigation was launched. The host, once the face of edgy comedy, now found himself isolated, with his own employers unwilling to back him up. Even as the tide shifted in Melania's favor, the case was far from over. The final verdict would have consequences no one could have predicted as the trial continued. As the trial neared its conclusion, the courtroom was packed to capacity. Journalists filled the gallery, pens poised to capture every moment. Outside, crowds gathered, split between supporters of Melania Trump and those rallying behind the late-night host. The stakes were higher than ever, with public opinion swaying heavily after William Carter's bombshell testimony. In her closing arguments, Melania's lawyer gave a powerful statement. She didn't just argue for her client, she spoke for every family dragged into the public eye without their consent. "This isn't about silencing comedy," she said, her voice steady and firm. "This is about accountability. It's about understanding that our words, especially those amplified to millions, have consequences." The defense, battered but resolute, made one last plea. They argued that ruling against the host could set a dangerous precedent, creating a chilling effect for comedians everywhere. "Where do we draw the line?" they asked. "At what point does protecting feelings infringe upon the freedom to challenge and provoke?" After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. The host was found liable for defamation, and the network was ordered to pay substantial damages for fostering a culture of sensationalism. However, the judge made it clear that the ruling was not an attack on free speech, but a recognition that humor cannot come at the expense of a child's dignity. The verdict sent shockwaves through the media world. For Melania, it was a bittersweet victory. She had stood up for her son and won, but the experience had taken its toll. In a brief statement to the press, she expressed her hope that the case would serve as a reminder to approach public discourse with more care and respect. For the host, the fallout was severe. Sponsors pulled out, the network distanced itself, and his show was placed on indefinite hiatus. But the case also sparked important conversations across the nation. People debated the limits of comedy, the responsibilities of public figures, and the ethics of media sensationalism. In the weeks that followed, new initiatives began to emerge to address the toxic culture in entertainment. Comedians reevaluated their material, networks introduced stricter oversight, and audiences became more thoughtful about what they chose to support. Through it all, one lesson became clear: words have power, and the consequences of their use extend far beyond the moment. While free speech is a right, respect and empathy are responsibilities we all share. As the dust began to settle, the nation found itself reflecting on the deeper implications of the trial. Conversations shifted from the specifics of the case to the larger cultural questions it raised. Where is the line between humor and harm? How do we balance the right to free speech with the need for accountability? For many parents, Melania's battle was a wake-up call, reminding them of the importance of standing up for their children in a world that's increasingly digital and unforgiving. One mother in Des Moines, in a viral video, posed a powerful question: if someone with Melania Trump's platform can face this kind of struggle, what does that mean for the rest of us? This trial wasn't just about Barron, it was about all of our kids. For the entertainment industry, the verdict was a reckoning. Networks and production companies began to rethink their approach to comedy, realizing that cheap shots and controversy-driven content come with a heavy cost. The trial sparked a renewed focus on creating humor that challenged norms without demeaning individuals. On the streets, in homes, and across classrooms, people started to reflect on the ripple effects of their words and actions. The trial highlighted how something as simple as a joke could spark a larger conversation about values, ethics, and respect. But its impact went beyond Barron, Melania, or the host. It became a cultural milestone. It taught that while we have the freedom to speak, we must also consider the power of our words. Humor can unite, but it can also divide. The responsibility to choose wisely rests with all of us. As the cameras turned off and the world moved on, one message remained: compassion must always come first. The trial may have ended, but the lessons it left behind are more relevant than ever. It's up to all of us to ensure that our words build bridges, not walls, and that we challenge others with respect, not cruelty. Let's continue these conversations, striving for a world where we can laugh, disagree, and grow without tearing each other down. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more stories that challenge the way we see the world.